Who in here likes Hershey's chocolate? Okay. Who likes other kinds of chocolate? We have any dark chocolate fans in here? Oh yeah, I'm a dark chocolate fan. Got any milk chocolate fans? White chocolate fans? That's not even chocolate. Okay. Okay. Gabe, have you ever had cocoa powder? Like maybe when you were a kid or whatever, like scoop, like just the straight cocoa powder stuff? It's like there's no sugar in it. Okay. How many of y'all have had cocoa powder before? How many of you when you were a kid had cocoa powder and you thought it was going to be sweet and super chocolatey? All right, Gabe, that's all for you.
All right.
So thanks, you get the free chocolate. See, that was easy. I didn't make him do anything crazy. I just gave him chocolate. Okay, now, cocoa powder is gross. If you ever had cocoa powder before without any sugar in it, like to make chocolate milk or hot chocolate, you have the milk, you have the cocoa powder, and you have sugar. And sugar is really important because chocolate by itself without sugar is gross. It's disgusting. And any relationship without peace is kind of like chocolate without the sugar. Like you might like dark chocolate. I love dark chocolate, but even then it's only like 60 or 70 or 80% chocolate. It's still got the 30, 20, 10% sugar in it, and that really helps a lot. And so peace in a relationship is like sugar in the chocolate. So Gabe will remember this as he's eating his wonderful Hershey's milk chocolate back here, but we can all think of that. So because even if there's a relationship, someone that you love, you truly love, but if you're not at peace, like there's conflict, and it's not exciting, and it's not fun. And so we're going to be looking at some things today for seeking peace. And I looked up the definition for peace and from the dictionary. I do this sometimes. I'm trying to get started and trying to get things rolling. But in the dictionary, it says peace is freedom from disturbance. It's quiet and tranquility. So how many of you have ever been in a situation that was extremely chaotic? Maybe it's related to little kids running around, or maybe it's related to work just being insanely hectic and your boss is going crazy and yelling at everybody, but where you just wanted a little bit of peace for just like 5 minutes. Now, for those of y'all that have kids, you know that sometimes the only place that you can have peace and quiet is in the bathroom. Exactly. See, parents know what I'm talking about. So, if kids, the only place is the bathroom because that's the one place that as long as you lock the door, they're not going to come in after you. So you get your like 5 minutes of peace, of calm, of tranquility. This works at work too. I mean, some of y'all might be known for the people that take extremely long bathroom breaks, but it's because you want to go and have some peace and quiet for like a few minutes before you run back out and it's crazy at work. So just this idea of freedom from disturbance, tranquility. I mean, you're trying to get away. You're trying to have some peace. And so part of getting rid of the drama in our life is learning how to seek peace, how to make peace in our relationships, make peace in our different environments, so at work or at home or wherever it might be. Like PTA meetings. I was in a PTA meeting once, and it was anything but peaceful and tranquil. And there's someone like yelling about something, and I didn't care. We were there because it's something for the kids. But anyway, that PTA meeting was anything but tranquil, and someone needed a tranquilizer dart or something, to calm down a little bit. But peace is important. So we're going to be looking at how to seek peace today, and this is the second part of our Save the Drama for Your Llama series. And what we've been doing is we've been looking in the book of Colossians chapter 3, and there are 5 verses or 6 verses that we're looking at over the course of the series that really address this idea of how to remove drama from our life. And so we're going to be reading in verses 14 and 15 today. And so we'll read that in just a minute. But the Bible is divided in 2 parts. We have the Old Testament and the New Testament. Colossians is in the New Testament. It was written by the Apostle Paul. He was a missionary throughout the Roman Empire, and he was writing to the church in Colossae. And a lot of these letters were written to churches, and then over time they got passed around from church to church to church, and they got collected, and that's how we have the New Testament. So Paul is writing to this church. And so in verse 14, let's go ahead and read verses 14 and 15, and then we'll walk through all of this. So it says in verse 14, it says, "Above all these, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in one body, and be thankful. So he says above all, so really quick to recap from last week, and of course you can find the message from last week on the website and you can look and catch up there, but we looked at 7 different tools that we can use to get rid of drama. And so does anybody remember any of these at all? Maybe one. Meekness, yes. Does that ring a bell? One more. Let's see if we can get one more. Patience, yes. Patience is another one. So the ones that we looked at, one was just this idea that we're on God's team, that he chose us, that he picked us. He's like, I want you on my team, and that we're just living a part of this select team. Also, compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, patience, forgiveness. Those are the different ones. And so what we're reading today, it says, above all of these, put on love. Now, I want to spend a minute and a moment and just talk about biblical love, because it's different, probably, unless you've kind of heard this talk before, love is probably different, what the Bible's talking about, than anything that you're thinking about right now. So the biblical idea of love, it's this word, it's this Greek word, and it's called agape. And agape love is different from romantic love. And so if you're watching romantic comedy, like that's not agape love. Brotherly love, like best friend kind of love, agape love is not like that either. Agape love, it's this idea of faithfulness, of commitment, of like an active thing, like you have to will yourself into agape love. Parents with their kids, that's more of an agape love. It's this self-sacrificing kind of love that you don't get a whole lot in return for your love, except maybe they throw up on your pants and they knock over and break like your favorite things at the house. They break your Xbox games and your Xbox, like has happened to me. They break things, and you love them, and then they break things. You love them, and then they track mud into the house. You love them, and they just do all kinds of stuff. Like that kind of a love is a sacrificing kind of a love. It's not a love that's expecting anything in return, but it's something that some days we have to think, oh, God, I need to love my kids, but I don't like them right now. And so it's that kind of an idea. Agape love, it's okay if you don't feel like it. Agape love is something that transcends our feeling. And so agape love is the sugar in the chocolate, like I mentioned earlier. So milk chocolate is the sugar plus the chocolate and the milk and preservatives and chemicals and everything that makes it the fake color brown that it is. But sugar is a key ingredient in making that chocolate palatable. Love is so key in any relationship that we have, but it's more of this agape kind of love that the Bible talks about. And this is the kind of love that we can have for all people. And it's not weird to say, hey, Martin, I agape you. All right, brother, I got your back. Like, you know what it's like when you got someone's back and you're there for them, and it might not be convenient. It might be 3 a.m. and they need you to help them or whatever, but you're there for them. Like, I say that because for guys, using the word love is often kind of this weird thing. Like, you don't go around, like, guys don't say, hey, I love you. That sounds so weird. Girls can say that, and that's okay more often, but less often for guys is it okay to say that. You can say, love you, man, and that's sometimes okay, But I say this and I define agape love because agape love is not some mushy thing. Agape love is a self-sacrificing thing. You agape love people that you're willing to lay your life down for. You agape love people that you're willing to take time out of your day, to make sacrifices, to put them first. We looked at humility last week and this idea that, naturally we think of ourselves as the most important person in the world, but humility says that we're going to think of other people as more important in the way we make decisions. Agape love does that. Agape love is not a feeling, but it's an action. Jesus was teaching on love, and he said you need to love your neighbor as yourself. The number one thing is to love God with your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength. Like, love God with everything. This agape love kind of thing. Number 2 is to love your neighbor as yourself. If you can just do those 2 things, you got it covered. So love God and love people. That's it. 2 things. But there's a lot involved in that. And he goes on and tells a parable about a man that gets beaten up, and kids are loving it right now, by the way. Can y'all tell? It's so cool. So they have the chocolate already. So they got to everybody ate chocolate. So only Gabe here. All the kids got chocolate. Every week we give them a whole lot of candy right before we hand them back to you. I know you appreciate that. So, but when Jesus is talking about the parable of the Good Samaritan, the Samaritans were people that they didn't like. They were from just north of the border, and they thought that these people were like half-breeds because they were half Israelite and half other, and the Jewish people did not like them. In this parable, in this story, the only person that showed agape love was a Samaritan, because he was willing to help out a guy that was down on his luck, that really needed some help. The Samaritan did that. It was inconvenient. It took sacrifice. And that's the kind of love that we're talking about. And we see in John 4:19 that we love because God first loved us. So agape love. So above everything else, to seek peace, to make peace, we need to have an attitude of love. And it's this attitude of agape love. It's this self-sacrificing kind of love. Because when there's drama in our life, the first step is really to see, are we the ones creating the drama, or are we kind of feeding the fire and keeping it going? And if we truly have an attitude of agape love, then we're naturally going to sacrifice our own wants to help the other people, if it's at work, if it's at home, wherever. And that really lowers that level of drama, because we are sacrificing ourselves for everybody else. So we love agape love because God first loved us. With that agape love, he first loved us. So here's just a few ideas that I came up with, just ways to power up on this agape love. And so one of them is to give yourself permission not to be perfect, because we talk about things. I mean, I'm teaching you, but I'm not perfect. I mess up, right? I do. And so it's this idea, it's okay to not be perfect. We're not going to be perfect. So don't think, okay, I'm going to do all this, and the first time that you mess up, well, I tried it, and that's dumb because I can't do that anymore. So forget that. Like, go into it knowing that you're not going to be perfect, but this is something to strive for, to try for. And so as you try to agape love everybody, that you're not going to be perfect, to go ahead and give yourself some margin for not being perfect, okay? So give yourself permission to not be perfect. 2 is to reflect on God's love and pray for his love to work in you. And so, like I said in 1 John 4:19 that I read earlier, we love because God first loved us. So when we reflect on God's love for us, which was the example of Jesus died on the cross for our sin, it's a tall order to follow, but we love because of his love for us. And so it's not something that we're trying to do on our own that's never been done before. But when we realize how much we've been forgiven, when we realize how much we've been loved, it's a lot easier to take that kind of love and say, all right, God, help me love others like you have loved me. And just continue to think, wow, God, you love me. It's incredible. You love me. And so you love me, I need to love others. Like, you can keep saying that over and over in your head if you need to. But we reflect on God's love for us. And then finally, work out your ability to love every day. So how many of y'all have ever tried any kind of exercise plan, lifting weights or walking or running or jogging or, playing a sport? How many of y'all ever tried or have in the past or continually do some kind of a workout thing? We know that it's important to do that regularly. And so I've had, periods of time where I worked out consistently for months, and all those days were a lot easier. And then if you miss a day or miss a week or a month or something, you try to come back, it's a lot harder after you haven't been working out, haven't been exercising for a while. Loving, like this agape kind of a love, it's almost like it's a muscle, like it's an exercise. Like, you get better at it, you get stronger at it, you get more natural at it. And so the more that we do this every single day, it becomes easier. So there's this quote, and a lot of people have been attributed to this kind of a quote. I did research on it. It's just an old saying that some people make famous, but it's this idea that your thoughts become words, your words become actions, your actions become habits, your habits become character, and your character becomes destiny. Have you heard that before? It's a real strong thing. I'll say that again. So your thoughts become words, your words become actions, your actions become habits, your habits become character, and your character becomes destiny. So it starts at the very beginning just with our thoughts. And so when we start, we haven't gotten to the destiny yet, we haven't got to the character yet, but we're just starting with a thought. God, I want to be able to agape love. I want to, this true love, I want to be able to show that for other people. At that infant stage, you're not strong in it yet, you're not consistent in it yet, but it's just that idea, it's just that little spark. But God can fan that into a flame, and that can become a roaring fire inside of agape love, this self-sacrificing kind of a love. So just doing it every day. And so if today you mess up, well, tomorrow morning, first thing when you wake up, I'm going to work on this agape love again. And then the next day, I'm going to work on this agape love again. Like I mentioned with the text group for reading the Bible verses, Bible in a year, I mean, it becomes more of a habit, right? Like after you've been doing it for several days, several weeks in a row, it becomes a lot easier, a lot more natural. Those first few days can be rough, but a few months into it, a few years into it, it's just second nature. And then all of a sudden you might get to the afternoon, wait, I haven't read my Bible yet. Wow, I can't believe I even thought about that, because it's just something that's become a habit. And so we're trying to develop good, godly habits, but it starts with the thought. It starts with the words, and just that one-time action. So just practice it every day. In verse 14, it continues. It says, this love, it binds everything together in perfect harmony. So a couple different meanings for the word harmony. I was looking those up. One is a set of music notes that fit together perfectly in unison. And so they're singing different notes, like one singing higher than the other, but they sound good together. Like it's just meant to go together. That's harmony. And so imagine being in such harmony and unison with people around you that, like, you might be doing different things, but you're working in such harmony that it's as if you were one unit. And so love brings us together in harmony. Another use of harmony is being in complete agreement. So imagine what it would be like at work or at home to be in complete agreement on something. That might seem very outlandish, but the great thing is if we are all individually seeking after God and seeking after His will, that we're going to be naturally brought together into harmony, into unison on things if we're all seeking after Him. And so to develop a relationship, you first have to get your relationship with God right. And when God is that foundation, the center, then the relationships between people work out a lot better. So at home, like with your marriage, with your kids, with coworkers, if they're a Christian, people that you have in your life that are Christians, especially, like, seek after God first. And if everybody is honestly seeking after Him, then it gives us a common point to aim our lives, and then we will be in harmony together. So the first thing we can do to seek peace, to make peace, is to focus on an attitude of love. And so, try to think, maybe jot something down, that I mentioned, or maybe something else came to mind of how you can work on agape love, on truly this self-sacrificing kind of love for this week. And try every day to do something, some kind of sacrifice for a person that you're wanting to show this agape love to. Because if we truly love others and put others first, then that's going to dramatically lower the drama in our life. And so again, like I mentioned this last week, but think of a big outburst of something that caused a lot of drama in your life, and you're like, oh man, I don't want this to ever happen again. If we have an attitude of love, of agape love, those kind of things won't even happen. Two, so focus on attitude of love. Second, let Jesus fuel your peace. It says in verse 15, let the peace of Christ rule in your heart. So just like we love because God first loved us, we can pursue peace with others because God pursued peace with us. Romans 5:1 says, therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Justified is just a big fancy word that means we don't have our sin counted against us. The Bible says the wages, like what we've earned because of sin, is death, is eternal punishment. But God sent Jesus to die on the cross, and we are forgiven. Our sin is not held against us. We're justified because of Jesus' forgiveness. Because of that justification, we have peace with God. We don't naturally have peace with God. Like naturally, we're enemies with God. We are naturally set against God, but Jesus is the one that has brought us peace. And so we let His peace rule in our hearts. Now, to rule means to be set above everything else in our life, and it dictates how we do things in life. You know, we're Americans, we're independent, so we don't want anyone to tell us what to do. I had to do jury duty last week, and I almost got caught for 2 weeks, so that would have been crazy. I might have had someone else come up here for 2 weeks. I was very close to being selected on some huge case that I would probably be arrested if I told you about right now. Like all this kind of stuff when we're in there, don't talk about it. But I had no choice to leave that room. If I left, they could throw me in jail. Like I had to be there. Like we're all independent. We don't like being told what to do. I was being told to sit in this room, to listen to these attorneys, to answer questions. They had each of us stand up. You know, there was 125 of us in this room. We all knew each other very well by the end of it because they asked very personal questions about us, about our family, all kinds of things. We had to be there. We had to answer questions. We like to rule. We like to be the one in charge. But there's always someone that's over us, and we don't like that. But if we submit voluntarily to Christ to say, Jesus, please rule in my life, his peace will rule. And even if what's around us, even if everybody else is in chaos, we can be at peace. Even if other people are losing their heads because everything's just crazy and they're freaking out about whatever it might be, we can be at peace because Jesus, is inside of us, and his peace can work inside of us. And so the question here is, have you trusted in Jesus? Have you been justified by faith? Are you personally at peace with God? Because you can't be in peace with your surroundings. You can't be at peace in your family, at work, until you are at peace with God. And so today, make that step number one. If you've never said, yes, Jesus, please forgive me my sin. I believe in you. Make that step one today. Because when we're at peace with God, that peace works its way out into everything else. And so we let the peace of God rule in our hearts. And so there's this idea of heart. Now, have you ever heard that phrase, his heart just wasn't in it? Talking about someone that he was trying to do some things, but he wasn't trying his hardest. You could just tell that he didn't have that desire, that passion, that want to. And so he just gave kind of a half-hearted effort. It's important for our heart to be in it, for that desire to be in it, that fire, that ambition, the want to. And so the peace of Christ rules in our hearts. We have that want to make peace. And so for peace to truly take hold of our relationships, we have to be committed. We have to have that ambition to seek it out. So we let Jesus' peace fuel our peace. We also see here to remember and to act like we're on the same team. So in verse 15 it says, to which indeed you were called in one body. And so to act like you're on the same team. Like there's that phrase, a house divided cannot stand. Abraham Lincoln said it. It came from the Bible. So if there's internal conflict, then the house or whatever, the organization will fall apart before any external conflict happens. And when external conflict happens, it's already crumbled, so there's nothing there to stand strong. Like we have to be united. And so, at home, to be like, yeah, we're all on the same team. Like we're a family. We are family, right? We're family. We're a team. We're united. Like we're on the same side. And so, differences that we have and pet peeves and whatever, to say we're on the same team, we're united, to realize and recognize that we're on the same team. Example I thought of is a restaurant. Like think of a bigger restaurant. It can't run on just cooks. Like there might be a little mom and pop shop where one of them is the cook and one of them takes the orders, but they both kind of do everything, and they're only open for lunch or something. But for a larger restaurant to work, you have to have cooks, you have to have people at the door, the greeters that get you seated, the hostesses and the hosts. You have to have people that are managing, and the restaurant can't run with only managers because no food would ever get made because a lot of them don't know how to cook anything. But the cooks aren't the best people, and so you don't want them out greeting people. But they make a really good steak or whatever, but you don't want them out there in the front, smiling at everybody. You just want them in the back making good food. Like, you need everybody. And so we all have different roles, but we're on the same team. And so to realize that unity, that dependence, codependence on each other to make this unit work really helps, lower the drama. And then finally it says, and be thankful. So the next step is just to be thankful. And so, quick, think of something a family member did this week that you're thankful for. Like, what's something that a family member did this week that you're thankful for? Can you think of something? Think of something that someone at work did this week that you're thankful for. This could even be a person that usually you complain about, but think of something that someone at work did that you're thankful for. Like, when we think of the things that we're thankful for that they do, instead of focus on the things that get on our nerves, then we're much more likely to be at peace with them. Once you've worked in the same place for a long time, you've picked up on all their quirks, they've picked up on all your quirks. That's why, at home, like families, it's kind of hard sometimes to stay at peace because you've been around each other for so long, you just know how to push each other's buttons. But think of something that you're thankful for, and remember that. Be thankful. Here we see that we need to be thankful for, to God for the people that are put in our life. And if we have an attitude of thanks, then we're not going to have an attitude of wanting to stir up trouble, of wanting to argue, of wanting to have all this conflict, because we're thankful for these people. And so sometimes we need to work really hard. All right, God, remind me why I'm thankful for this person being in my life. Or even just say, God, please show me why you have this person in my life, and then thank them for that. Because God has put everybody in our life for a particular reason, and we just need to seek him and say, God, why is this person in my life? And think about it, pray through it, and then remember that. Because there's going to be days that anyone will get on our nerves, but to say, God, thank you so much for this person. So Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. Now, these aren't the peace finders or the peace allowers. We don't accidentally get into peace. Now, peace is kind of like imagine that you ran into someone that became your best friend. Like, you met them. Like, there was this guy that when I would go to Starbucks a lot, he was there, and we kind of became friends, and just, hey, how's it going? And it was kind of a cool thing, kind of accidental. You can think of like how you've become friends with people, and often it's very accidental, or like your spouse, like how you got to know them, or any kind of a best friend, or the job you have. Maybe it was an accidental kind of a thing, but an accident doesn't keep that relationship going in the future. It might start it, but it doesn't keep it. We can accidentally kind of fall into peace if everybody randomly at one day doesn't want to argue, but we have to actively make peace every day in the future. It's something we have to work for. It's something we have to seek out after, because peace does not come naturally. Naturally, we want to just fall into disorder. Peace, and you can put this up on the screen, peace is not kept by accident. So, there's some points in your life that you might be at peace, and then some points you're not. Sometimes it's an accident, like one morning or one afternoon you might fall into peace, but peace is not something that is kept by accident. It's something that we have to maintain. And so, in your families, at work, like, we have to actively seek after peace. This agape love that I talked about, it's not a feeling, it's something we work toward. It's a decision that we make. We can decide to love someone with agape love. It's that whole thing of, I love you, but I don't like you right now. Like, we're going to love, we're going to make a decision to love. We're going to make a decision to be at peace, because maybe naturally we want to like cause strife. Like, they said something that just gets on your nerves, but we're going to make peace. Peace is not kept by accident. Imagine what it would be like in your own life, like if you personally made peace, sought after peace, and made every effort, even if no one else is working towards it. Imagine if just you sought after peace and made peace in your life. Imagine like if our church, if we were a church full of peacemakers, to go out into our world, go out in our communities and make peace, to unify, to realize that we're on the same team. We're not the enemy, to truly be on the same team together, to truly seek after peace. Let me pray for us, and we'll be finished. God, we thank you that you sent Jesus to die on the cross, to justify us, to make peace with us, God, that we were your enemies, that we weren't seeking after you, that we didn't love you, but you loved us, that Jesus died for us, that he made a way to you and for us without us having to do anything, that he did that. And thank you for loving us, for saving us. God, we pray that we would be at peace with others just like you are at peace with us. God, show us what it means to be peacemakers in our families and in our work and in our communities. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.